What's up, watch enthusiasts? Skylar Santana here. Let's talk watches. So, in the world of watches, there are a lot of terms being thrown around. There's a lot of nickname for watches, one of which is very commonly used, and that's beater. A beater watch is a watch that's going to be something that's tough, something that's really grab and go, something you could knock around. Maybe you wear it often, maybe you wear it just when you go to the gym or when you know you're going to have a rougher day and you need something that's going to hold up, something that you're not going to be able to think about and not worry about really scratching, denting, just something more along the lines of affordability and something that's really going to hold up to whatever activity you may be doing that will require such. So some of the things that require beater watch to be able to be classified for that is that it needs to have water resistance at least 100 meters, and if it has a screw down, if it has a crown, in fact, you want to be able to have a screw down crown in order to fully have that water resistance that you need. Maybe you're going, on vacation and you need something that you're going to be going underwater with, or something that you just have, there's just going to be a lot of water presence. Maybe there's just a lot of rain and you're concerned about wearing something that's not going to have as much water resistance. You want to make sure that if it does in fact have a crown, that it's going to be a screw down crown in order to prevent any water getting into that watch. Another thing that beater watches are usually found as is it's usually a quartz watch. Either a regular battery or a solar power battery would even be better, because now you have that added advantage of having that watch for 10 years without having to change out that battery at any point. So either way, a quartz watch usually also, whether it be a solar power or a regular battery, is going to be a movement inside of it that is a lot more durable. There's a lot less moving parts that are going to get knocked around during your activities that you're doing for the requirement of that beater watch. So a quartz watch is definitely something that people look at when they're looking to choose their beater watch. Another thing is you want it to be shock resistant. You want it to have some kind of extra padding, some kind of added insurance on that watch as far as its physical practicality. Maybe you'll take something that has enlarged crown guards if it does have a crown, or you'll get something like a G-Shock that has a shroud, and they usually have the best as far as resistance to any kind of shock that may happen to the watch during your activities during that time. Another thing that most people will qualify for their beater watch is its affordability, right? At the end of the day, you may have a job or you may have an activity that you're choosing this beater watch to take with you, and it's just a really vigorous tasks. Maybe you're taking it to the gym and it's around a lot of weights and you're worried about dropping a weight on the watch, or you're a construction worker, you're often manually using a lot of heavy machinery to which it may get caught in something. So you don't want to risk more of your expensive watches, and affordable watches are a really good factor to put into your beater watch, just to make sure that if it does in fact get caught in something or drops and it just takes a really hard knock and it does get destroyed, you're not going to have to worry about replacing that watch, and you're not going to have to worry about servicing the watch and things of that nature. I wanted to talk to you guys more so about my experience with my beater watches. This week I've been wearing a lot of my beater watches just because it's been a lot of rain. I've had to put up displays this week at my job where I lift 60 to 70 pound samples and I put it on there, and sometimes I'll either knock the watch against the wall, or a sample will fall on top of that watch, or my wrist will get caught between something, and I don't want to have to worry about some of my nicer watches getting scratched up and or that hit derailing the movement to where I need to now service it. So I brought me to this video to do something about beater watches and talk to you guys more so about the watches that I've experienced, the watches that I own. There's so many watches when it comes to the realm of beater watches as far as what you can choose. If you look at G-Shock, for an instance, they have tons and tons of watches. I mean, pretty much every watch that they make is going to have that higher resistance to any physical damage and be able to take that kind of shock wave when you bump your watch into something. So that's the most common watch that most people will go after. And in fact, that's going to be my first watch. I have the GX56BB-1, also known as the extra large or the king of G-Shock. So that watch is a pretty big watch. I mean, there's other watches like the DW5600 that you can go with. That's a smaller size if you have a smaller size wrist. But I have a 7-inch wrist and my wrist width is pretty big, so it's not so bad. The watch does sit pretty proud on top of my wrist, when I'm wearing it. I decided to modify that watch, modify the lugs. This way I was able to put a NATO strap on there, because on the stock strap, it is a little bit more beefier on the sides because of how that resin strap just doesn't completely mold around your wrist when you have it fastened. And I just enjoy modding watches altogether. So if there's an option for me to mod it, I'm most likely going to do that. It's just something that I really enjoy. Now, aside from that G-Shock, I do recommend that one or the DW. Like I said, if you have a smaller wrist and you just want it to fit a little nicer, that's a great recommendation. But again, G-Shocks, you could pretty much go on to any model on their website, and you could go to that company and pick out any model at that point, and it pretty much will be affordable. It'll have a good water resistance. This one in particular, the GX56, is a solar powered, so I never have to worry about swapping out the battery. It's just a grab and go watch. The time is always going to be accurate if I have to adjust it maybe just a little, but it's just something of an inconvenience for me. And it's when I want to have a wrist presence and have that larger size format on my wrist. You know, I have everything from smaller end sizes to bigger end sizes, and for me it works. I'm happy with it. There are times where I feel like it's a little too big, but my wrist could definitely pull it off. And it's just when I'm in the mood to have that wrist presence and also have that durability for whatever activity that I'm doing for the day. Now, the next watch that I want to talk about is the Kaale Oak, the GA2100 series, or the GAB for the Bluetooth 2100 series. Very, very, very common watch. It's something that I absolutely had to have because of my modding background, and I was very interested in getting this watch in order to modify the casing to make it look a little bit more like the Royal Oak, rather. That's why they call it the Kaale Oak. That's the nickname for it. But it's definitely a watch that I would recommend. It's a lot of fun. It sits well on pretty much everyone's wrist. It's ready to go right out of the box. You don't have to modify it if you don't want to. The resin strap that it comes with comes in a variety of color, and it's just a really classy look, low profile on the wrist, just ready to go. I mean, again, you're going to get a quartz watch out of it, so the timing is going to be accurate. And then the added benefit, the reason why I went with the Bluetooth, is because you can't sync that up with your phone, to which if you do need to correct the time on it, after syncing it to your phone, it'll do that automatically for you. So just a little bit of a step easier. Oftentimes I find myself with my G-Shocks or my Casios or any of my digital watches, they are pretty accurate. Some of them do need to be a little bit adjusted after a couple of months, but at the end of the day, you know, that just makes that process easier for me to do that instead of fiddling with the watch, because they are straightforward as far as setting the time and the functions, and you can figure it out. But because of the intervals in which you'll have to do that, you'll probably not remember off the top of your brain, and you may have to look that up. So that Bluetooth does come in handy with that model, and that's the reason why I recommend the GAB if you can stretch the dollar out a little bit more and grab that model instead of the GA2100 version. Another watch I'd like to talk about, and I think it's a little underrated and it's not so much talked about, even though after talking to the community and talking to owners who've had this watch, they absolutely would recommend it as well as a beater watch, is the Victorinox. My reference number is 241723. I believe I got that a couple of years ago, and every year they do come out with a new model of it. We're talking about maybe sub 300 and maybe around 350, depending on where you're looking for it. And all these watches can be purchased on Amazon or off of the websites directly, so you guys can check out the prices and check out the specs that are current to date. These watches have been in my collection for a little while now, so it's not going to be dead accurate as far as the pricing goes, with, you know, inflation and just things costing more over time. But when I acquired this watch, it was actually a gift from my brother. He asked me for a suggestion on what I want for my birthday, and I sent that over to him. At the time, I think it was like $175, you know, still staying within that $300, sub $300 threshold, and being more affordable going back to that. And they also have that watch in an option for mechanical. However, it is a watch that's very durable. You guys can look up the reasons why they advertise it. You know, in their advertisement when I was purchasing it, they showed a tank running over it. You could easily see the crown guards are really heavily guarded, and it does have that screw down crown to give you the extra water resistance. I believe the water resistance on it is 100 meters. It may be a little bit more, but it suffices enough. And the reason why I went with that watch outside of a G-Shock or any kind of resin look is that it has that stainless steel. So I could dress it up. You know, it is a watch that if I'm somewhere for my day in between having to do some kind of business meeting, and then I have to hit the road and I have to do something a little bit more active, or if I'm going to the gym or to the park later on to play ball, I don't have to worry about that G-Shock looking a little too underdressed for the situation. I could just throw on that Victronox knowing that it's probably as durable, if not the same, maybe a little bit less, I don't know, but it's going to be something that qualifies for that category of a beater watch. It is going to be a quartz. Again, it does come in a mechanical, but I recommend you guys getting the quartz for the reason that a mechanical, at the end of the day, even if it has a very nice structure casing around it to protect that movement, it's just going to be more vulnerable to more parts getting moved around or knocked out of place, or needing a service a little bit more often instead of just swapping out the battery and then being ready to go, right? If you're going to have a busy day and you're not going to have time for anything else but the activity that you're doing, the last thing you want to do is having to worry about winding that watch. Is that watch keeping time, servicing it, and things of that nature. So that was the reason why I decided personally to go with the quartz watch in the Victronox. It's definitely not a watch that I see too many people talking about. It does get some leeway as far as people bringing it up as a beater, but I definitely recommend that to anyone who wants something a little bit more dressier. And I've known people that have had the watch 10 years plus and had it much longer than I. So I know that the watch holds up, and it is a Swiss-made movement at the end of the day as well. So you're getting all those benefits and you're still getting something that's still a grab and go. So that's something I would definitely recommend. So the last watch I want to recommend to you guys is pretty much a two-part. It's going to be the AE series by Casio, better known as, when we're talking about the 1200, it's going to be the Casio Royale. And if it's the 1300 series, which is the one I started off with, it's going to be the Referee. So essentially the watches are going to do pretty much the same thing. They're just going to have a little bit of a different aesthetic as far as the design in the dials, the way that things are arranged. There's a particular reason why I chose the 1300 as far as the aesthetics, because I am modding that watch. I'm heavily into it, and something that is new to me as far as modifying a digital watch. But it's a nice break from doing mods on mechanical watches, because you don't have to worry about pieces in the watch being as fragile or as sensitive. So you can pretty much just have a lot of fun with it without the worry. But that's another watch that I also qualify as a beater watch, and that one's going to be the smallest of the others that I recommended. So if you have a smaller wrist, it's definitely something to check out. It's been definitely in the community system as far as that model goes for modding. It's a very popular watch. A lot of people own it, and it does hold up as far as it being a beater watch. And we're talking about $20-$30 for a particular model. So even if you're modding the watch outside of wearing it in those harsh conditions and something goes wrong, you're at a $20 loss versus a mechanical watch where the movement alone is going to be $30, right? So you could pretty much buy a whole brand new watch, get all the pieces that you would need to swap out, and just have your own customized look without having to break the bank. So if you're looking to get into modding and you want to start off with something that's a little easier, that's just an added tip. But as far as it being a beater watch, it's phenomenal. The crystal on it, on the casing, is a plastic one, so it is probably going to get a little scratched up unless you add a bull bar to it. So you have options where you can go to SKX Mod and you can get a casing that has a sapphire crystal on it if you want to. And the same thing goes for the other watches. I believe the Victronox, I may be wrong, but I believe the Victronox also comes with a sapphire, being that higher end look when it comes to beaters. But of course the G-Shocks, it being in the affordability that they are, they more put their money into having those shock protectants in the casing, with the resin being a little thicker and, not being able to get knocked around so easily because of that. So anyway, guys, those are my personal experiences with the watches that I have. At the end of the day, guys, there's so many different options that you can go for. I would just make sure that they qualify for those few tips in the beginning of the video that, they hold up to. Remember that water resistance, make sure that they're quartz, make sure that they have a shock resistance, and you want them to be affordable at the end of the day. So I hope that helped somebody out that was looking for their next beater watch, or looking to see what really qualifies for a beater watch to add to their collection. And I'll see you guys in the next one. We'll talk watches. Peace.